Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street, an XRP update video for you guys today. Hopefully keep it short and sweet. We'll go into some of the chart info shortly, talk a bit more about the price over the next sort of 12 months, and we'll look into a bit more depth as well as to why we believe the XRP token is such a powerful entity moving forward. So guys, if you haven't done so already, please do make sure you smash that like button and the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. So welcome to the channel, of course, if you're new. XRP is something I've been holding really, I think, since sort of 2019. So I'm nowhere near the beginning stages, I think, when it was launched originally 2011. However, we're in a position now, guys, where XRP has seen a radical change really in the price point over the last sort of 3 to 4 months, particularly around that SEC involvement. But also the introduction or the announcement, if you like, of the Ripple USD or the stablecoin aspect. So this opens up a magnitude of doors in the financial industry, something that we covered quite strongly in the last XRP video. So I'm not going to go into too much detail of that side of things. But what we can for sure think about here is some of those catalysts as to why we are still in XRP as an asset holding our portfolio, and what we perceive to be going on throughout 2025 that could really take this to the next level in terms of price point. Now, just before I go into some of these other tabs here, XRP itself, of course, way back in 2018 had its all-time high. You see that on the left-hand side here. Well, CoinMarketCap has it as $3.84. More recent times we have seen this go up to around about $2.70. I think it went up slightly higher than that on some exchanges. So of course CoinMarketCap's pulled that data in as it will. But from this we can see there's definitely room for improvement in the price point as these months come into fruition. Now, people always ask me on the channel, what's your price prediction? What do you think? And I don't really try to delve into this too much because I always try and give a, not necessarily a low ball, but more of a conservative approach. But also I try and analyze it as much as possible with the data that we got in the markets in terms of the chart analysis, but what's to come. And that doesn't necessarily mean like here and now. It means what could be going on in 5 months' time, 10 months' time, 5 years, 10 years. So in the grand scheme of things at this moment in time, I do anticipate us to see an over $4 mark in XRP in 2025. Now, people might say we should be hitting $10 up to $50, and I've seen those predictions. And absolutely, if the stars align, those are definitely possibilities for sure. But my conservativeness comes from not just the experience, but the knowledge in the space, the knowledge in the financial industry as well, to give that better indication of a more conservative price. So if it goes beyond $4 or so, fantastic, where no one's complaining, right? But people are also going to say and sit there go, well, hang on a minute, why on earth would I be buying in at $2.46 when we're only thinking that it's going to go as high as $4? So that's definitely an argument to say there should be a bigger push than this, really, if we were looking at the mathematical aspect of the chart movements right now, where we are right now, and looking at previous bull runs, that actually this could supersede beyond $10. So let's see how that pans out. But because I was buying XRP at around sort of, I don't know, 8-10 cents around back then, for me these $2 prices are exceptional, and if beyond that, great. I'm selling off small percentages as we go along on the upward downward trends that we're seeing in these last few days and weeks. So we relate to the point of the longevity of XRP. So irrespective of whether you're looking at the double gain here, if that's not enough for you, what's going on in the long term as well as short term? Are we going to bring ourselves back to the 180 mark, to the $1 mark? Of course, I'm sure in bear markets we will see that. In this current cycle, I'm not so sure. But it goes back to my point earlier made that we have to look at reasonings behind XRP in the terms of its strength and its ability in the financial industry. Now, there's a few factors in 2025 in particular. I'm not a politician. I don't perceive myself as knowing too much about politics, but I do know what the market can perceive itself when things happen globally in a political stage. Now, that also comes down to what's been going on with the SEC. So the ongoing legal battle between Ripple and the US Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, has obviously remained a significant part of XRP's progression, or lack of, in the last 12 months. When we look at that particular scenario, in terms of its appeals, its rulings, we saw, I think it was like $125 million fine at the time for being an unregistered security. But lo and behold, towards the latter stages, or the last couple of years, we've seen it go into the favour of Ripple. So the resolution of that case completely would substantially impact XRP's market perception and value, in my opinion. That, I feel, coincides massively with, of course, President Donald Trump coming in, in April, I believe. Now, he's very pro-crypto. He's putting people into high positions, particularly in the SEC chair positions. So we've seen, obviously, Paul Atkins as an example of that. And appointing officials that are supportive to digital assets, I think, is massively important across the board. So with that in mind, with the XRP Ripple situation, in the last video we covered so many principles of what XRP was capable of as a token, let alone Ripple as a company globally in the financial sector, cross borders, etc., and how we can progress digital assets in general, and plus their stablecoin, what that really does to the economy worldwide is phenomenal. And with Trump coming in, that could progress even faster than ever before. So this suppression, I always use this word suppression in previous Ripple XRP videos, and I think that's true. I think XRP was massively suppressed for many years, whether that was to try and allow governments or politicians or whoever to be obtaining more XRP at those lower prices and keep it maintained with automatic market makers and things like that. Yeah, these are just theories and thoughts, not suggesting they definitely happened, but that sentiment is there, in my opinion, that when we remove all these shackles, we have some stars aligning, even in these next few months. So I look beyond that as well, of course, where I've seen these predictions. I said, predictions seeing from like $3 to $50. My conservativeness comes to around that sort of $4.30 mark, provided, in my opinion, Bitcoin hits around the 150k mark and Ethereum reaches well over that 5,000 mark as well. And I think traditionally what's happened in the past, that's not to say it will happen again this time around, it can pass itself down to the altcoins in inverted commas, but XRP is quite psychological in some aspects, because a lot of people will go on to things like CoinMarketCap and say, oh, what are the top 10 tokens, 20 tokens, I'm just going to throw my money in there. And the general principle of adoption and mass awareness at this moment in time and in future markets, we've seen in every cycle, people jump in, don't really know what they're doing, they just throw money at whatever they see as the top 10 just for safety. And that's one principle of it. But XRP and Ripple is so much more than that. There's many assets that we can accumulate that point of view to, of course, but this is the video about Ripple XRP, so we're talking about this specifically. Of all these different catalysts, we've seen the aspect cross-border payments, the utilization of XRP as a bridge currency. We've seen the liquidity solutions for that, absolutely phenomenal. Microtransactions, so it doesn't have to be a whole XRP, it can be a fractionalized element of it, but the low transaction fees are very important. Would be a word, I suppose. Companies very much enthusiastic around that in terms of saving money, especially if they're a global entity or trading globally. The long-term value outside of 2025, which is why I'm always going to hold on to it for a long time. Yes, I will sell on and off in between cycles, but a big majority of my XRP will not be touched for the next sort of 10, 20 years. That's my strategy here. You've got the institutional adoption. We're in the early stages of that, guys, like the financial industry, trillions upon trillions of dollars, right? So we've got that massive integration piece globally. We've got the scarcity of it in the near future as well. Of course, the fixed supply is very important to understand that aspect as well. And of course, the emerging user cases. We've talked about so many of those. But what I found quite interesting, one thing I'll just pick out really quickly here is why I've got it on screen. The need for pre-funded nostro accounts will be significantly reduced, in my opinion, when Ripple comes to play. So a nostro account, basically an account, kind of like a bank that holds foreign currency in another bank. So often in the country where it does business or facilitates transactions, that's where you will see a nostro account, for better wording. If anyone wants more info on that, I'll leave a link to this in particular. But essentially XRP, with its on-demand liquidity and its cost efficiency and its speed, can almost eradicate this. And the value of that, guys, not necessarily globally or daily. This is just purely from what nostro accounts have globally as an entity. So 10 to 27 trillion dollars are tied up in nostro accounts alone. Of course, that's a static figure, as I just mentioned, so kind of representing a total capital, if you will, locked at any given time globally. So you can see that there's numbers there where you're talking about market share, and that's not suggesting 27 trillion or 10 trillion goes directly into Ripple. There will be many blockchains, many companies, many systems being used, but it gives you an ideology around the type of market that we're looking at. So that's another big part of XRP's notion to supersede potentially that $4 mark and go way beyond. Whether that's this year or in years to come is another question. But that is definitely something to behold. And I think some of the other things here about the ETF aspect is really important. Of course, an ETF, so the exchange traded fund, we've seen that with Bitcoin and Ethereum. It did a bit of a drive on the prices there, but I believe an increased demand from such investors or people who are using ETFs. Some people don't like to individually purchase stocks and shares and crypto. To have the ability to have like an overall hedge fund that operates with 3 or 4 different ones, and you just buy your shares within that ETF and it spreads it across for you automatically, and tend to have like percentage holdings in each of those, I think it'll be quite interesting. So you could essentially buy in the near future XRP directly on crypto exchanges, or you could have it as potentially as a bigger pool where, say, like Legal in General or Global X or something like this would have a multitude of pools of crypto, whether it be like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, whatever. Let's say 5 top 10 crypto accounts. You could instead have a share price of the Global X, for example, ETF. That's the overall arching holder of these cryptos, and you could just invest in those as a big pool. Not have to worry about the individualization, get my words right, of having to manage each of them individually. You can just do it as an overview. So I think an ETF would definitely enhance the credibility of XRP, even though it's already quite high. The mainstream acceptance, of course, of its technology in general. And I do believe that as well, accelerating that aspect of partnerships with banks, financial institutions, enterprises, you name it, will definitely attract more use cases and considerably enhance that decentralized finance application in finance, or DeFi, beyond. So yeah, it essentially potentially cement Ripple as a massive global leader in blockchain-based payments, in my opinion. So there's a number of things there to ponder upon. I'll leave a link to this one as well. It's quite interesting how the wallet changes have occurred, of how many you can hold and what percentage you are as an account's balance equals. So it's quite interesting, actually. This number is driven down slightly lower than it was before, but to be in the top 10% of XRP holders, just have 2,599. But look at these at the top. Imagine being the 1%, holding these crazy numbers of 56,000. I'd thought it would be a lot higher than that, but I think in the next 2 to 5 years, you might see that number change a lot as well. But it just shows you how early still, even though it's been around since 2011, and people have been talking about, I would say in mainstream, maybe the last 4 or 5 years of XRP, that these numbers are still possibly achievable in some instances. I think certainly the 10 and the 5%. But of course, as these numbers increase of the price point, it becomes a lot more difficult. So I'm very honored when I was buying at that 8 to 10 cents mark to gather that pace. But it shows you as well, patience is key in some aspects. We're looking at all these different assets, all these things going on in the crypto space. Look at the longevity of things as well, because this market is so early. It's so early. Irrespective of the climbs and the reductions that we see in the charts, we're so early in this entire space. So it's probably a good point, guys, in the video to jump into the chart of XRP. So we can see XRP has had a fantastic run the last few months. It's been very much stabilized in the last few weeks with this big sideways movement here, pretty much from that sort of beginning of December mark. So we had this absolute great traction in November. We're doing this cyber movement. And I think what's interesting about this, if we were to have the triangular movement, unfortunately I can't find it in time, but we can see that squeezing module here of compacting that space at that resistance kind of area around about $2.33. You can see we've been hitting this number a few times across the last month. So in my opinion, I think we can start scaling this up towards when we get nearer to April, maybe Trump's placement as a president. I think this is where we might see some development over the coming months when we see more news about the SEC aspect, the involvement with the new political regime in the US could take this to new levels of XRP, maybe even smash that previous all-time high, who knows. But let's keep an eye on it, because these next trends up, if we can hit that previous high here that we saw back in 30th November at $2.94, if we can withstand that, we can then start looking at the $3.30, the $3.50, and in my opinion, kind of where I was talking about that $4 mark is really based on this previous long-term retracement, fib retracement level, at $4.23. So for me, I will be definitely having selling positions just before that $4 mark and slightly over it just in case, and maybe slightly higher as well towards that $4.20 just to capture that opportunity if it does come around. Because the next stages up, guys, are $5.59 and $6.51. Now you're going to see lots of different charts. They're going to be slightly out different there, but in general the fib levels are pretty nailed on to an extent. The price of which it hits is not fully accurate. That's why we take those DCA opportunities as we go up and down. So that's my kind of basis view of 2025 as a conservative approach, and in my opinion as well, maybe a minimum. I'd be amazed and surprised if we don't smash that previous all-time high. We are in a different market now, absolutely. We're a different cycle. But I think there'll be some big momentum coming in, especially when people start looking at longevity. I think if new customers into crypto come in, new awareness, and people are saying, oh, XRP actually could be $100 in 5-10 years time, that $2, $4 mark doesn't really sound that big at all anymore. So I think it's really just depending on these various elements to coincide with each other as this time goes by. I think this year in general is massive. We talked about the RTGS system going live in November. It's a huge opportunity. You can see the RSIs on the bottom left here, 55, 58 respectively on the 14 and 28 day markers suggest we're in that middle range right now, that where it kind of aligns with my theory around the suppression markers here in that sideways movement. It shows that this could go either way, of course, but I think with the momentum the market has at the moment and just people biding their time a bit, seeing what's going on, I do think that we could potentially get a more of a forward upward trajectory with XRP's price point in these coming weeks. But equally, in the next few months, I think that's where we'll see a more of an upscaled approach back towards that sort of $3 mark as a bare minimum as well. So we've got to keep an eye on this. But again, it's about strategy, the DCA opportunity. Are you a short-term holder, long-term holder? Are you taking advantage of these swings that we're seeing? Because, if you were playing the trading game the last month, you're probably in a really strong position potentially, because we had those highs of the sort of 270, 280. We dropped all the way back down to just sub $2, I think, and we've been fluctuating up and down in between these modes over the last few weeks. So there's definitely been plenty of opportunity to take advantage of these XRP prices, but let's see what happens in these coming weeks. We'll do another update video on XRP soon. I just wanted to reflect some of those key points. Let's keep interested. Let's see what occurs, and we'll keep our finger on the pulse as well when it comes to the SEC involvement and, of course, the Trump administration coming into power. Thanks for watching, guys. Let us know in the comments below what you think. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.